there is no new idea under the sun. They're just ideas that everybody has had. What defines success is how you implement it. And of course, speed to market and access to capital and what have you. So, how do I get these ideas? I basically talk to people. Of course, there are things that I'd like to do personally, but most of my ideas are really dumb. So instead, I talk to people and then they tell me where they think the industry is going and so on. Now, I have another rule for new entrepreneurs, which is how I test my ideas.
Mm.
Um, when you have an idea and you put it on a PowerPoint or a presentation of some kind, and you go out and talk to people, the first person you go and see tells you you're an idiot. And as long as you can take that, you ask them, why am I an idiot? And they tell you why, right? I mean, obviously, you have to be talking to somebody who's knowledgeable in the sector. You go home, you modify your PowerPoint, you go out to the next person, now you're half an idiot. And after 5 people, I'm telling you that you will have a service offering which will be prime for the market.
May I have your attention, please?
Welcome to Real Gaijin, unveiling the real Japan, an American expat's inside look. Now it's time for another story from the Read My Lips series of podcasts. Summarized podcast.
Welcome. Good morning, Tokyo time. It's Mark Kennedy. I'm the host of the Real Gaijin Substack and AMA podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest, Mr. Terrie Lloyd, who's here from Tokyo as well. Terrie, you want to briefly say hello?
Yes, hi, Mark. Just for those people who are not in Japan, Kumamoto got hit really hard yesterday. We didn't feel it up here, and our housing projects and the Seto Naikai were all fine. So, yeah, our thoughts and prayers for the people who got caught in the shopping center, though. I
Oh,
think
yes, that's horrible.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, I'm actually recording down from my home in Kyushu, and we did feel the quake yesterday,
Yes, I'm
but
sure you
I'm on
did.
the other side. So,
I see.
yeah, it's
Okay.
unfortunate. Unfortunate. So I'd like to introduce our guest. Frankly, he's someone that literally doesn't need any introduction because he's so well known in the entrepreneur community in Japan, and he's been here for 44 years. We're going to hear all about that. He has started numerous businesses, 18. He's actually exited, so in other words, successfully sold several businesses well. That's something that we're going to get into. So if you have any questions about entrepreneurship, particularly living and working in Japan as a foreigner and building a business in Japan, this is where you should be. And I would encourage everyone to use the chat functionality to ask Terrie anything. Remember, this is an Ask Me Anything performance. And that's what it's going to be, is a real performance. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to record this. So I will get a recording out, published within about 24, 36 hours, and we'll pull out some of the key facts from this presentation. So Terrie is actually the CEO and founder of many, many companies, some of which have now already been sold, as I mentioned before, but he's now actually running quite a few. Let him introduce which ones that he's focused on at the moment. But let's go way back. Take us back to when you were 24 and you arrived in Japan for the first time. Why Japan? Why'd you come here?
Yeah, it's actually a really stupid story, but I had broken up with my girlfriend and I thought I would go to India. Actually, I always felt a lot of symbiotic, feeling for India. Um, and then my friend came back with Delhi Belly, and I thought, oh, that could be me. Around the same time, another friend came back from Japan from the very first year of working holiday visas. Um, Americans don't know this, but most other developed nations have relationships with Japan where young people under 30 can work for between 6 months and 2 years and have a sort of half holiday, half work. Fantastic program. And it started originally between Australia and Japan with a fellow called manage you. And he was with government. It was basically him who signed the agreement. My friend was in the very first wave in 1982. Anyway, I was at his dinner party, strict vegetarian, had a bowl of rice, and everything was fish, so I couldn't eat it. I got to the end of the table, there were some plates of pickles. I ate one of those pickles, and then it was like, an epiphany. I thought to myself, well, wherever I can make this stuff, I'm going there. So I just packed up my bags and headed to Japan. 6 months after I arrived in Japan, I found out that kimchi doesn't come from here. So, so I'm a kind of Dumbo. That my virtue is that I'm very persistent. But I have to say that some of my life-changing decisions were, not particularly at I.
Okay. So after you learned this, what were you doing in Japan as such a young man?
Well, I worked for a computing and electronics company. They actually blew up in a trading scandal some years later, but they were called AWA. I was actually in the computer operations before there was a PC, by the way. Um,
Uh-huh.
so when I arrived in Japan, I was one of the few foreigners who knew what a laser printer was, how it worked, hard drives, and of course, CPUs and so on. So I very quickly got work with a translation company as a technical writer. I wasn't a technical writer. I knew nothing about it, but I knew a lot about hard drives and lasers. So I did that for a little while. Fell in love with one of the girls at the office, and we eventually got married. About 6 months after being here, I started getting calls from my old company, and excuse me, and they were making submarine detectors, which were all over Australia, called sonobuoys, floating submarine detectors. So they had this particular thyristor that they needed to procure, and Australia, being a very small country, was the waiting time from Japan was about 12 months.
Ooh.
So they would pay me cash. I would get on my bicycle, uh, bike down to Akihabara, and buy these thyristors in the little shops in the alleyways in Akihabara, put them in a box and send them by registered post to Australia, where they would suddenly go into top secret defense products. And I
Wow.
did that for a couple of years, actually. It was very lucrative. We were all happy. I was happy. They were happy. And Australia got protected from whatever imaginary submarines they were worried about.
Wow.
But
That's
yeah,
quite a supply chain they had there.
yeah, yeah. So that's how I got started. And then
Okay.
after that, I was offered to import lobsters from King Island down near Tasmania, and got into a whole bunch of other things. But mostly, it was writing manuals. Then in '86, actually in '85, I was approached by the company that developed Japan's first laptop computer, which
Hmm.
looked like a gull wing. It was called an Ampere 1,
Yeah.
run by a company that was owned by Nihon Shingo, which is a big signals company, amongst other things, for the railways. Um, so anyway, that ran a obscure operating system, and so nobody bought the product. But that woke me up to the fact that there were these new things called laptop computers. I found a company down in Hong Kong that was selling them. I was getting calls as a technical writer, basically, from translators saying, "Hey, we want one of these laptops because they run in English." So I went down to Hong Kong and bought 10 laptops. My profit margin was 70%. Um,
Right.
I sold, sorry, it was 30% for the laptop, 70% for the desktops that came later. Um, And so I started a business selling laptops and eventually desktops. And then in '89, I got approached by this little company called Novell. And Novell was the very first networking company. They had a product called Netware. And I was asked by the Australian government, which by this time got to know me pretty well. Um, so they asked me to install the very first Novell Netware server 1.0 in Tokyo in the Sankaido building. It took me 3 days, and yeah, but I finally managed to get it up and running. And as a result, Novell used to send all their clients to me.
Wow.
Um, I couldn't find engineers for love of money because Novell was totally new, something different. But I noticed, I yeah, I noticed that there were people from India working in Hong Kong. And of course, I'd been going to Hong Kong for PCs. So I hired an Indian fellow. He turned out to be really good. He knew netware. And I asked him, "Are there more where you come from?" And he
Well,
said, "Why, yes, there are." So I partnered with his dad in Mumbai. They lived in the Parsi colony and basically started going to India. Um, and I went to India 30 times. And during that 30 times, I hired 70 engineers out of roughly about 1,000 interviews. So I got the creme de la creme. At that time, Indian engineers could only go to Abu Dhabi. There were no other visas for any other countries, certainly not the US. I really did get the top of the, top people. And today, many of those people are heads of IT around the world in major banks and major corporations. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I got started. It was all by accident, all by coincidence, all by other people doing. I didn't spend an iota of thought in growing a business. It just happened.
wow. And now, can you put this in context? This was right during the bubble economy, so Japan was literally on top of the world at the moment, right?
Yeah, it was. Of course, I was just a struggling entrepreneur, and the banks didn't want to know us. I showed up, when I wanted to buy those first PCs. I went in with my then pregnant first wife, and we begged the bank manager to give us 2 million yen so I could go buy these PCs. He didn't want to do it, and then I got her to stand up, and I said, "Do you think I'm going to leave Japan?" And and with that, he said, "Okay, all right, I'll give you the 2 million yen." So he did. Yeah.
Wow. What a story. Okay. And then, so you were literally doing this all out of your apartment in Tokyo?
Actually, we were, yes, yes. So we had to wake up at 8, 7:30, clean up, close off the bedroom, and then our employees would come in. Yeah,
Oh, oh,
yeah, we
wow.
had
Okay.
employees.
Wow, that's quite a bootstrapping story. Okay, my goodness. And so, back then, like I was a student in Japan at the time, so I don't think I was fully attuned to what was going on in the business world by that point. But what was it like to be an entrepreneur, especially a foreign entrepreneur in Japan? You must have been kind of one of a very small number at that point.
Yes, yeah, yeah. There was one guy who was very successful called Bill Totten. He ran a company called Ashisto. I think he might still be alive. He lives down in Kyoto, as far as I know. Bill was quite an inspiration. I met him one day, and basically he made me realize that it was okay to be different. And yeah, so yeah, of course, it's the old adage. Well, it's old adage now after 44 years, but the foreign face opens the doors, and
Yeah,
then the Japanese face keeps the doors open.
yeah,
So there's a technique for getting business. Yeah, and then
yeah.
I was always at the bleeding edge of tech, so there was a natural flow of opportunities. Um, I got Dell started in Japan from a tech point of view. Not many people know, but Dell actually started in the basement of a liquor shop down in Meguro.
In Akihabara?
No, down in Meguro, actually, the
Oh,
gentleman who was running that was quite an interesting fellow. I was personally friends with him. And then he announced to me one day, "Oh, guess what, Terry? We're going to move. We're going to be in Shibuya-bashi, near Ebisu." And I said to him, "Well, I run an IT company. Can I do your fit out for you?" He said, "Yeah, why not?" So I wound up supplying people to man the call desks and that sort of thing because they were having trouble recruiting. So actually, for quite a while, but maybe about a year and a half, we were running the customer support center. And then roughly the same time, we got deals with Morgan Stanley to manage their computers on site and their networks, and Microsoft. And actually, we moved Microsoft from Eifukucho down to, I think it was Tamachi, Shinagawa. That was a big project for us. Yeah,
sure.
this is all in the deep, dark history of tech and so on. A lot of things have
Yeah.
happened since then, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but that goes way back. And then, so tell us a little bit more about how then you branched into many different avenues. And I mean, in total, I think you told us that you've started 18 firms in Japan over the past 44 years. So what was that trajectory like?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess the big enabler was in 1995. I'd started Japan's first English language tech magazine called Computing Japan back in 1994, and well, it wasn't going so well. I've long since learned I'm not good at publishing, but in any case, it was a first, and I was visiting various companies trying to get them to buy advertising from us. One day I was in EDS, which is now part of HP. It's actually HP's services business, which is quite a large business. Used to be run by a guy called Ross Perot, who wanted to become US president. Didn't quite make it, but still. So I was in there trying to sell an ad for my magazine, and after they politely heard out my pitch, the guy on the other side of the table said to me, "Well, Terry, we might or might not buy an ad, but I understand you have an IT company, and
Oh,
we might be interested in buying it." And
oh,
yeah, so for me, that IT company was a huge millstone. I mean, I couldn't raise money. We were always having to get prepayments. It was just a total pain in the a. Um, and yet here was somebody willing to buy it. So Rasmussen, Rob Rasmussen, some of your viewers may know him. He's still around, good guy. And Rob asked me how much I wanted for the company, and I mean, it's just one of those life-defining moments. You've
yeah.
got a company, suddenly a big company wants it. How much are you going to ask for? $1 million, $2 million? Anyway, a number popped into my head. I said 10 million, and
Okay.
and he said, "Okay, all right. Well, let us do some diligence."
Ah,
So actually, we in 101, literally, we were the 101st acquisition. They told me that we were the highest. Um, multiple they'd paid on book value because we had no value basically, but we had 100 bilinguals and we had major
mhm.
accounts and that sort of thing, which EDS really wanted. So anyway, they bought the company in '95. Um, I gave half of the money to my managers in a fit of generosity, and actually I'm still very good friends with those people. Um,
Yeah,
30 years later, as you can imagine. Um,
sure.
and because I'd never had money before in my whole life, I come from a very poor family, at least on my side of the family. Um, I asked them if they would give me 10 million yen as a brick of cash. Now, a 10 million yen brick of cash is roughly the size of a small bread box. And, well, maybe a bit smaller than that. But So I kept it in my bottom drawer of my desk, and every day I would open my desk and look at this cash and then just slide the drawer back in disbelief, basically, that somebody would actually pay for this painful company that I was trying to run.
So did you continue to run it after they bought you out, or you relinquished
Well,
control?
I established a regular pattern of getting fired.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, every time I've sold a company, I've been fired. Um, so,
Oh,
just my experience is that the buyers don't really want the founder. They just want to have insurance. And yeah, so EDS, I mean, like most of these companies, they did it in a very nice way, but they made it abundantly clear they didn't need me. And yeah, so I got fired. And then while I was on leave, because they paid me out for a year actually, I wasn't allowed to work. So I spent a lot of time thinking about the next business. And
mm,
I was approached by this guy in Dale, a guy in Santa Cruz, who in 1995 had a recruiting company called AsiaNet.
yeah,
And Dale said, "Oh, I'm going to bring this to Japan." And I thought, well, what an idiot. There's no one using internet. There's just me and a few other nerds. And, we were using links and then after that, Netscape. And he said, yeah, but think about who is using the internet. And I said, well, it's just a bunch of engineers. And he said, and I thought, okay, yeah, you got a point there. We
mm,
want those guys. So I worked with him for about 6 months to try and bring AsiaNet to Japan. It didn't go well. I wanted to buy 5% of his company, didn't want to sell it. So we separated in 96. And in 97, I set up this new thing called Daijob.
uh,
Um, I wanted something that would be kind of a bit of a silly name. I thought Yahoo was an interesting name. I could make something equally silly. So I came up with Daijob, which means big job or Daijobu, and it was a huge hit. So we launched in 98. And within 6 months, we had 160,000
mm,
bilingual
mm.
residents. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were the first online mid career recruiting company in Japan. The first online company was Recruit, of course, but they only did graduates from university, and we did the mid career.
Mm,
And, a
right.
lot of people told me it's not going to work. People don't want to change, blah, blah, blah. But actually, what happened is that, young Japanese would get locked into the same company for 35 years. And if it's a black company, lots of overtime and so on, they were stuck. So I effectively gave them a way out. And
Mm,
that's how I got 160,000 resumes. Shortly after we started, within a year, N Japan
mm,
arrived on the scene. It used to be called something else. I forget the name now. And now today there's over 1,000 online recruiting
yeah,
companies, and your average young Japanese under 30 has switched jobs more than twice.
yeah. So you
So
were on the leading edge of that trend too.
I like to think that we enabled a massive social change in the country,
Mm,
and frankly, that's all my best companies were like that.
mm,
They was focused on not on the money, but on social change. And that's of
absolutely.
course why I started Japan Travel and now Akiya too.
Well, I definitely want to get into that. But before we do, a quick segue. I know we're going back and forth, but we have a question from a listener.
Sure.
Going back to your publishing days, one of the businesses you got involved with was Metropolis Magazine. You
Yes.
bought it from the founders and it was controversial. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, that was probably my worst business experience ever.
Mhm.
Um, the the founders actually had a great idea, which is to create an English language flea market on paper, right? Which they called Tokyo Classifieds. They couldn't get funding, and they came to me, and I actually funded them.
Oh,
So yeah, that should have been a red flag because they didn't pay me back. I had to wind up engaging with their managers and finally, we did get the money back after 3 years. But in any case, I thought it was a great idea. It was a great idea, and they were good operators at that time. So fast forward 5 years, they'd grown the business substantially. It was probably around 3 oku in revenue, deeply in debt. And they asked me if I could help sell the company.
Mm,
I was running an M&A boutique at the time,
mm.
and I had a couple of young Kiwi guys that were, full of full of confidence. I won't name names, but anyway, they told me that I should buy this thing instead of. Well, we tried to sell it first. We had 2 buyers. At both times, the founders, the Devlins, they basically balked. They suddenly decided they wanted more money. So in both cases, they blew up both deals. So we're kind of stuck, and I wanted to sort of like just drop the whole thing. But these 2 young guys reckoned that they could run the business. Now, this was in 2007. I had millions of dollars in the bank. Business was booming. And so I said to them, okay, well, you go get the money from someone else and don't impact my cash flow. And if you can do that, then I'll sign off on it. So amazingly, they did. They raised a huge amount of money, a couple of $1 million. And then on top of that, we took on their debt. And probably 6 months after that, the Lehman shock occurred. Now, the people who basically read that magazine and therefore drew all the advertisers were bankers. And in Japan, the banking sector went crazily bad, from 35,000 people working for major foreign companies to about 5,000. And all the others wound up in other jobs or left for Singapore or Hong Kong. So blood in the streets, terrible for us. The Devlins had by now gone to the US, um, and just the business went to hell in a handbasket. And we still had money that we had to pay out. It wasn't a huge amount, but about $1 million left. So anyway, I kept paying them. I managed to bring the business back into equilibrium at about $1 million in revenue by 2010. And I thought, okay, fine. At least anyway, we can just sort of like stretch this out a bit further. And then the earthquake happened up
Right.
in Tohoku. And I don't know if you remember or not, but there were 550,000 foreigners who fled the country.
Yeah.
Um, it was pretty spectacular. I stayed, and but that was the end of the magazine for me. I just didn't have the
Mm.
cash or the stamina to do another round. It was obvious that it was going to take a couple of years at least to recover. So I was close to bankruptcy. I managed to negotiate with all my creditors. The Devlins themselves thought I was hiding money, and then they started attacking me online. So that was counterproductive because at that time I still planned to pay them the remaining 50 million yen that I owed. Um, and with them attacking me, of course, suddenly my client base didn't want to do business with us. So it just
Right.
made things even more difficult. Anyway, so at that point, I decided to start digging. And what I found, actually, one of their staff, their sales manager, came and confessed to me that even as I had paid them money, and they had a non-compete agreement, they had secretly set up a competing company with this woman to take the business from Metropolis. So that gave me a taste of who I was actually dealing with. So I took them to
Mhm.
court. I won an injunction on 111 counts. I won all 111 accounts. And basically, they were forced to remove their allegations from the internet. Um, as I said, it damaged me financially, but I mean, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. As far as I know, they're still in. Now they're in Scotland. I don't really pay attention to them anymore, and I got on with life.
Oh
Um,
my.
in a way, this whole thing was a there was a benefit because it forced me to reevaluate something that I wasn't good at, which is basically titillating an audience. As a publisher, you quickly learn that there is a very low common denominator for people reading media. And so, yeah, so I gave the company away basically. Um, and I started a new thing. I had a few software developers left. I had this idea to create a crowdsourced, user-generated quality control um, media, and I applied it in two areas: dog owners and travel. And actually, both went well, but the travel went better. So I didn't have enough money to run both, so I shut down the dog ownership site in 2014 and ran with Japan Travel. And well, when I started in 2013, there were about 7 million people came to Japan,
Mm,
and last year it was 42.7 million.
right. So you were on the right end of that trend. Perfect.
I was again, not really a conscious decision. Just I had to choose one of them, and that turned out to be the one that I chose. The the software that I created, I have patents on it for quality controlling crowd user generated content, and that has stood me in good stead till today. So the Japan travel site gets about roughly 1.2, I think I saw as a number, 1.2 million visitors last week.
Oh my.
So yeah, so we get a very significant number of visits. Um, yeah. So anyway, that was my experience with Metropolis. It
Okay.
took me a decade to pay off the debts,
Mm,
and yeah, lesson learned. I'm not going to buy somebody else's company again.
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I didn't realize that. Hey, the questions are coming fast and furiously here. We have another one. Good morning, Terry, a friend of yours. I'm not going to read your name just so you can ask for a friend here, but would love to hear more about the fermentation hobby. Well, what's that?
Well, okay, so one of my daughters did a neuroscience degree, and she was working on a project that related the microbiome in your gut to brain health, particularly for autism and Alzheimer's. And as the years have gone by, this is probably about 7 or 8 years ago, it's become fairly obvious that there is a strong correlation via a nervous system called the vagus nerve. So if you want to stay healthy in old age and keep your mental faculties, basically you need your gut to be in good condition. And so that got me, I was kind of already interested in fermentation because of the kimchi thing, right? I've
All
always
right.
loved, you know, I mean, as a sort of vegetarian, although I'm pescatarian now, one of the highlights of your diet is fermented foods, right?
Mhm.
So I started importing different cultures. Right now, I run about 10 cultures in my kitchen. The cultures that have the biggest impact on my health are milk kefir. Um, yeah, that's the biggest one. And then probably the next thing after that would be heirloom yogurt, and then homemade vinegar, which I make out of shiso. But I probably the only person in Japan that has ginger beer plant, which is a particular type of SCOBY found on cactuses, and it has an affinity with ginger. So that makes the genuine ginger beer. Like in Australia, we have this fantastic ginger beer called Bundaberg, and I believe that's probably made with this particular SCOBY.
And
So
are you going to transform all of this activity into a new business?
maybe
Ah,
I did register.
definitely.
I registered shibuyasourdough.com. Oh yes, of course, which is another lacto uh, product. Sakekasu is the leaves of sake. And can you hear me okay? I'm getting
Yeah,
a
yeah,
Yeah.
You
Okay.
dropped for a minute, but you're back.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so sake, kasu, and bread. As long as you do lacto meets lacto, you can add almost anything, two ferments into one and still get a good product.
All right, great. Well, that is definitely getting down in the weeds, so to speak. And we have another question that's going to take us completely in the opposite direction, way back, zooming way back out. The question is, curious what you think the main differences are between doing business in Japan versus other countries.
Um, I guess it depends who you are. Doing business in Japan back in 1980s is very different to now. I would
Mm,
say that Japan is internationalizing at an amazing rate. In fact, I'm a member of a group of entrepreneurs called the EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, world's largest entrepreneur organization, EO.org. I'm on the board. I was invited by a gentleman called Yoshihito Hori, who runs Globus, the MBA school, and also the VC fund. Actually, I think it's the largest VC fund in Japan. So Yoshi called me along with 39 others to establish the very first EO in Japan. And so there were two foreigners. The other foreigner, Richard, now runs a major private equity fund,
mm,
and then 38 Japanese. Now, we used to meet monthly, and we would give our news, to each other. Somebody would stand up around a big table and give their news. And one day in 1995, I stood up and said, "Well, guess what, everybody? I sold my company." And there was dead silence.
mm,
And I felt totally deflated. I thought people would at least clap or something.
yeah.
So I sat down, and then as the reports went around the table, the guy next to me, um, he leaned over to me and said, "Hey, Terry, what was wrong with your company? You had to sell it."
Oh,
And actually, Ohara-san was his name, Toru. So unfortunately, about 3 years later, Toru hit a hard patch, in his own business, and took his own life because of the shame of,
okay.
left behind a wife and two small kids. Um, that's what it was like back in the 1980s. Okay, so these days, somebody sells a company as a Japanese, they're celebrated
Mm,
the same as everywhere
mm,
else.
mm,
So I think that is a pretty good kind of like contrast, if you like, or evidence that Japan is becoming internationalized business wise. Now, having said that, I always tell new entrepreneurs that use your foreignness. Uh, Japanese already compete against each other in an aggressive way, right? I mean, you've got 120 million people. Why would you want to be on the same level as 120 million? That's hard work. So use your differences,
mm,
and based on your differences, you can take more risk. You have access to things like patents, new businesses before everybody else does. Um, and frankly, these days, thanks to the EO and various other organizations, I'm in another organization focused on Indian entrepreneurs called Tokyo. Actually, I'm the president this year, and that foreign network is very powerful um, because not only do you have entrepreneurs and people like myself who have acquired some capital and now invest in other small companies, but also because there are many, many foreigners in senior positions who have golden handcuffs. They wish they could start a company, but they get paid too much and they just can't do it. But they want to have the experience. And so they're willing to jump into small startups and provide them with some cash. And so,
mm,
I'm often approached by young foreign entrepreneurs saying, "Hey, how do I get funded? Nobody really wants to know me. I'm relatively new to Japan. I've got this great idea." And I say to them, "Look, instead of trying to find one funding party like a VC, why don't you reach out to your friend network and aggregate 1 million yen or 2 million yen per person.
Mhm.
It's entirely legal in Japan to aggregate from up to 49 people.
Oh, okay.
And you don't need to register for a securities, offering.
I see.
So 49 people at 1 million yen each is 49 million yen, which would be a pretty
Okay.
decent starting point for most
Who
people that are bootstrapping a company. So it's
who'd
not
have thought?
impossible at all. You just need to understand the dynamics of the of the local community.
So, Terry, bringing that subject today, I mean, a couple of other interviews I have done regarding this opportunity involve existing businesses in Japan that have no successor and the opportunities available to foreigners to purchase these businesses. Now, I know you just explained the whole experience with Metropolis, but
Yeah, that's right.
what's your take on that approach as opposed to starting from absolutely scratch?
Well, I mean, obviously, I did do it, and it didn't go well. So I personally won't be buying anybody else's company. I mean, of course, I'm hearing all the time of companies for sale that are actually making money. But you've got to remember that these companies are making money because the owners have, scraped profits from a bare bones operation, and it's usually staffed by old people. So
Mhm.
not only is that company going to age out, but it may not have been profitable in the first place if you paid people what they're really
Mhm.
worth.
Ah,
So,
big one.
right, so that's a big issue. I think if I was a fund and if I was doing a roll up, then maybe it makes sense to go acquire a number of different companies.
Mm,
But everyone has exactly the same problem, which is where to find people to
mm,
staff these things. And
mm,
most of these companies for sale, they're not in the services industry where you can use ChatGPT or something else, right? They're like hardcore, manufacturing. We need somebody at the press. So yeah, I think honestly, uh, I wouldn't go in that direction unless
okay.
I ran an operation in India and I was just
Mm,
trying to acquire the machinery and the know-how. Okay, that would work.
mm.
But then you'd be operating in India, not here in Japan.
Okay, thank you for answering that. So we have yet another question. Actually, the person that asked the last one, thank you for the detailed answer. Also, wondering how you personally find ideas and test which ones are worth pursuing.
Yeah, well, my wife always knows when I'm having a good business idea because I do 30-minute showers. Right. So usually, my shower time is like 5-10 minutes because I'm in a hurry. But if I'm having a good idea, I'll just stay there and noodle it through. Um, the world is an unlimited place. I personally think that we're connected at a plane that we're not aware of yet. And if you have a good idea, 10 other people around the world have had the same idea.
Mm,
I say that there is evidence for this because when you see Nobel Prizes, you often see research where two different scientists in different parts of the world have both been working on the same problem.
mm,
And, so they get recognized together, but actually they're disparate at the start. So I'm going to say, regardless of what the mechanism is behind it, there is no new idea under the sun. They're just ideas that everybody has had. What defines success is how you implement it. And of course, speed to market and access to capital and what have you. So, how do I get these ideas? I basically talk to people.
mm,
Of course, there are things that I'd like to do personally, but most of my ideas are really dumb. So instead, I talk to people and then they tell me where they think the industry is going and so on. Now, I have another rule for new entrepreneurs, which is how I test my ideas.
mm,
Um, when you have an idea and you put it on a PowerPoint or a presentation of some kind, and you go out and talk to people, the first person you go and see tells you you're an idiot. And as long as you can take that you ask them, why am I an idiot? And they tell you why, right? I mean, obviously you have to be talking to somebody who's knowledgeable in the sector. You go home, you modify your PowerPoint, you go out to the next person, now you're half an idiot. And after 5 people, I'm telling you that you will have a service offering which will be prime for the market. So that is how I tune my projects. Now, as to, picking the sectors, well, it's the old story. If you get in at the bottom of a elevator ride, obviously you're going to be making a lot more money than at the top, right? So I did ask myself in 2011, what's the worst industry to be in now that Fukushima Daiichi plant has, 3 generators have blown up? And I thought, couldn't be anything much worse than inbound tourism. So that's actually why I picked inbound tourism, because it was absolutely the worst industry. And
Huh.
yeah, and now I didn't know that Abe was going to drop the yen,
Yeah.
and furthermore that the Japanese government was going to go on a advertising bender to get people to come here. I didn't know that, but I did say before, we're all connected, and when you have these ideas, you can test them on the market, and if people get excited by them, you probably got something real. Time to market is super important, though. With Akiya 2, I came to market a little late, right? And some other guys already took the media section, company called Akiya Mart. They're decent operators, and they've done a good job of acquiring their customers. But I realized very quickly that I couldn't replicate because we were too far behind the curve. So what we decided to do instead is that we set up an end-to-end ecosystem so that people would see us as the competent guys after they had been attracted to think about Akiya. And that's exactly what's happened. So my partner, by no coincidence, is an architect. He's trilingual, very competent. My other partner, by the way, is my wife, bless her heart, and she's living at the moment down in the Seto Naikai working on our first project.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Good.
if I
Well, I'm
want to
glad
see
you
her, I
asked
have.
that.
Sorry.
Perfect. Oh, well, you might have noticed in the chat, we actually had a question. Can you talk about Akiya 2.0? So you went right into that. Terrific. And what are you planning to do with this business?
Well, after I figured out what the market positioning would be, as I say, we've had a significant increase in inquiries. I guess we're in around 20-something customers at the moment. So we've bought somewhere around 15 houses on the behalf of foreign customers. I know some of our competitors are up around the 100 mark, but we've done a pretty good job. We've got 5 stars on all of our reviews. We have 2 businesses. We have a services business, and the reason I did that is that I wanted income while we were raising money. And then we have an assets business where we renovate houses. So
I see that.
yeah, um, okay, so why renovate houses? Why not just build new? Well, okay, this goes to my own personal passion and that of my wife. We love Japanese old traditional houses, and they're all being bowled over, knocked down. It's really terrible. So we figured that if we can make them profitable and do it outside, in the countryside, that we could create our own niche. And that's exactly what's happened. So as she was working on that particular project, all the typical things you would expect: lack of builders, dealing with local community, dealing with each house is different. So we renovated this first cottage. It's 100 years old. It's on Omishima Island. Why did I pick that island? Is that I'm a cyclist, and 360,000 people ride past our little lane that we live on every year. So, great latent traffic. There's untapped demand for nice places to stay. So, we launched 1st of June. We've had 15 bookings. I set my business plan at 27,000 yen average net per night. for 120 nights a year. The yield ROI is about 12% in that particular location. And instead, because this house has 3 sleepable rooms, we're getting on average about 4 to 5 guests a night. So our average revenue is about 40,000, almost double what I planned for.
Very
So
good.
it's a good business.
Terrific.
Now, what we plan to do is we plan to buy at least 10 houses in the same village, creating
Interesting.
a cluster. Yeah.
Huh,
And
terrific.
yeah, so we've already started looking at other locations up in the mountains. Noto, I have a number of properties in Noto. Of course, another big earthquake there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the very interesting thing about traditional houses, if they're older than 1965, roughly, the timbers set very, very hard. And because they're post and beam, they're rigid and they sit on piles of rocks. And that acts like a primitive spring in an earthquake.
Oh,
So these houses are actually quite resilient to earthquake. Now, everyone thinks, oh, they're going to fall down. They've got those heavy tiles on. You're going to get crushed. But actually not. If the building was in reasonable condition to start with, actually, that's one of the best buildings to be in. So with that Noto earthquake, I have one place which is 7 kilometers north of the epicenter. 7 kilometers to the south is Suzu, the city where 85% of the houses got flattened. Lots of people died. But my house, we didn't lose a single tile on the roof. And the reason is because it's sited up on rock, up off the sand, and it has this traditional build. So that was a big lesson actually for our whole team. And we deliberately go after houses that are like that.
wow, that's counterintuitive. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Once again, Terry, we're being taken out of the weeds. We have another question that's going to zoom
Sure.
way back. It's a very good one.
Yeah, no
What
problem.
advice could you give about building a good personal network as a newcomer in Japan?
Yeah, so in 1997, I started a newsletter called Terry's Take, email, really old school. And what I did is that I wrote every week religiously for 50 weeks of the year. I took a hiatus in 2021. I will resume it again sometime this year. And I wrote about what it's like to be a foreign entrepreneur in Japan. Simple. So every week I pick a different topic, some idiotic thing that the bureaucracy was doing, how to get finance, how to deal with bribery. There's just a wide range of topics that I covered. And as a result, at a peak, I had about 15,000 readers.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was and is. Now back down to about 5,000 or so. But of course, these days we have Substack, and here we are. And before that, of course, we had LinkedIn. So I have 18,000 followers on LinkedIn, but Microsoft, bless their cotton socks, changed the algo. So now I can't reach most of those 18,000 people. So it's just, as a wasted resource, and I don't bother with LinkedIn very much anymore. But Substack is a decent replacement, although it is somebody else's platform. You never really own your audience. And actually, surprisingly, I think the open rate on email is still better, which is why Substack, of course, sends notifications that way. So my advice to new entrepreneurs is very simple. Embody yourself as an expert on something. It doesn't matter what it is. Just be the expert in something. Clearly, if it's related to business because you're trying to build a business, that's better. But it can be as niche as anything. You wouldn't write a newsletter about AI, for example. You might write a newsletter about AI in the HR space in Tokyo. And
Specify.
I imagine that, specify. Because you don't need 15,000 followers. What you need is 500 or 1,000 who really care about what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the
Good
ones who'll
advice.
do business with you.
Great tactic. Very good. We have yet another question. So this is the most participatory group I have ever had, and I'm not surprised because it's you. Here we go. Before I had the pleasure of meeting you in person, I read your intern, uh, of you with Helene Thien in our 1988 book, Setting Up and Operating a Business in Japan, Handbook for the Foreign Businessman, a book published 38 years ago. You're looking great, Mitch. You probably know who that is.
Oh, is that Mason?
Well, yeah, the name is Max Mura on
Oh, Max.
Substack.
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard Mitch. Um, yeah. So, yeah. Well, obviously that gut brain axis thing really works. Yeah. I mean, I don't dye my hair. This is natural color. I'm 68. Um,
Yeah, you do look very healthy. That's terrific. Well, I can tell from your diet and your cycling exercise. That's great. Very
right.
good. And mental exercise. Terry, I cannot believe how quickly this hour has flown by, and we've had many questions, comments. So thank you to everyone who has participated. But maybe we'll just quickly end up with a few comments because it's very unusual. We wanted to
Right.
ask you about, quote unquote, the art of the exit. In other words, you not only set up 18 businesses, but you successfully sold 8 of them. And I'm
Yes.
curious, what are some of the pointers for getting out of a business? You've already told us a little bit about your first experience and how that was viewed way back in the 80s or 90s as kind of a failure, even though it wasn't. But what are the steps necessary in order to exit successfully?
Yeah. Well, number one is to have something that other people want. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? So, what do people want? If they're bean counters, they want a forward booked revenue. Um, if they're strategic and they're Japanese, generally they want offshore customers. If they're strategic and foreigners, they want Japanese customers. If they're technical and they're trying to address a problem like acquiring skill sets, they want your employees. So, um, you look at your company and you ask yourself, what's the best thing about my company? What can I do that somebody who want to acquire it would want out of that company? Then it's a factor of how badly they want it, and that speaks to the multiple. I have a little side business where I help people sell companies, and I listen to them first about what they're doing. I pick up on the main points that would make it attractive. Then I go out and talk to companies that need that thing. And then we start talking about multiples. And the last two, I got multiples of 7 and 10 on net profit. So yeah, so that's not a bad return.
No.
Some companies when they list they're doing 10 to 15x, right? So doing an exit that is infinitely more preferable. Sometimes a company looks like it's not profitable, but it really is. It's just that the person has turned the company into a lifestyle.
Yes.
So once you remove the founder and reinsert a professional manager, for example, you can often get savings and then suddenly find profits that the founder didn't realize were there. Um, so I've sold to Chinese companies, Japanese companies, Australian companies, and American companies. They all have different personalities. The Japanese generally like to use a middleman. The Americans like to deal direct. Um, Usually, selling a company is like dating or doing sales. You present your best side, get the greed index up first, and then as part of their due diligence, you alleviate their fear factor. So greed and fear, those are the two key words that you have to deal with in any major transaction, including fundraising, by the way. Yeah. So um, I always make sure that companies that I'm selling that I've left something on the table. And I always make sure that the company is fully functional and making profits. So I had an M&A offer for my travel business last year, but the travel business isn't at the profit level that I think it should be at. And it needs to grow a little bit more yet. So once we're up around $20-30 million, then I'll be ready. But by that time, we can also do an IPO. And so formally at the moment, of course, we're all shooting for an IPO. But, just as a case in point, it's like fruit on a tree. You can't pick it too soon. Otherwise, basically, the buyer will be dissatisfied and you will be dissatisfied. So
Okay.
it's always good if you can defer that tempting treat, like they did experiments for little kids. And people who can defer the treat for a little bit longer usually do better.
Good advice. Good advice. I know we're pushing the time, but we have one great question, one more coming in.
Yeah, I'm good
What's
for another 5 minutes, so go ahead.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Thank you. We have a question. What separates a truly great 5-year business plan from a bad one?
Luck. I kid you not. I kid you not. Some of my businesses were just marked with a big black X,
Ah,
and other ones I just got lucky. Of course, we can call it business intuition and so on. And obviously, it does help to stay. I mean, I read the news. I'm on top of macroeconomic trends. I can sort of pretty much guess what's going to happen in 5 years' time. But at the end of the day, it's luck. And I will say that 1% of people are lucky, and the rest of us make our luck. But at the end of the day, even though you're making your luck, it's not going to happen until all the planets are in alignment.
yeah. Oh, I
You
completely concur
you
with
have to
that.
be
That's great.
patient. Mm.
One more question from me. It sounds like you still have a million different things going on, and I'm picturing you spinning plates and so forth in the air here.
Uh,
What does the future hold for Terrie Lloyd?
Yeah, so good question. I mean, I'm really enjoying what I do. I love travel. I love fixing old houses. I would like to commercialize the fermentation stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm 68 now. I guess I'll be functional at least until my mid 80s. So, um, I've still got another 15 years at least. That's a lot of time. Um, I do feel like I'm in the third part of my life, giving back. And so I
Mm,
spent a lot of time mentoring.
mm,
And that's why, of course, I'm running the Thai TIE operation here in
right.
Tokyo. Mm.
Mm. Excellent. So, Terry, thank you so much for joining us. For everyone that participated, we had a large group today, very active on the chat. So, thank you very much for that. Terry is the founder and CEO of a number of different companies. We talked about many of them. In the final write up, I will put down some of my thoughts about what the key takeaways were. There are a number of them. Plus, we'll put links to how to reach Terry. And that's also in the invitation, but I'll put that in the final write up as well so you can reach out directly to Terry. And it sounds like Substack is on the future uh, program for him as well. So hopefully, we'll be able to stay in the network. Terry, thanks again for joining us.
Great. Thanks very much, Mark. Appreciate it.
Okay. Have a good day, everybody.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
お疲れ様でした。
Thanks for watching and or listening to another story from the Read My Lips series of podcasts on Real Gaijin. Tell us what you think and be sure to tune in again next time.